Today, I wanted to talk through how I got a job in tech sales with zero sales experience in the past. And not only am I going to talk through what I did, but I'm actually going to share in this video direct messages that I used to managers to actually set up first round interviews that ultimately landed my first job. I think it's important to mention that for everything that you see in this video, there's tons of other things that I was doing in the background that ultimately didn't land me a job, but that's what it requires. Honestly, 80 to 90% of the effort that you expel trying to get your first job is not going to result in a job. You can take those experiences and be in a much better position to actually land a job over time. It's what I often tell people that I work with directly, is that it is going to take a lot of trial and error. There's value in things like boot camps, there's value in things like this content, but candidly, until you're actually putting yourself out there, trying and failing, you're not really going to be in a position to actually get the job that you want, and it's a necessary part that will not only serve you well throughout the interview process, but your actual career in tech sales. Just very quick context, I had worked as an engineer for 3 years, and during that time, I was actually playing an amateur sport called Team Handball for Team USA. I ended up, after 3 years, being completely fed up with engineering, and I actually took a year off to go play overseas and also train here in the US. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I quit my job, but I figured it would still be in tech and probably in sales. I was very tired of having like a standard cookie cutter job and wanted the upside that sales presented. With that being said, even though I had played sport for a year, even though I had had a cool chance to do things like play in a world championship, etc., it wasn't a guarantee that it was going to be easy to get a job. It was something that I really sweated as my athletic career kind of came to a pause. And again, aside from the specific messaging that I'm about to show you, I just want to reiterate, when I decided to actually go all in on tech sales and make that transition into sales, there are tons of different things that I did outside of this specific message that put me in a position to ultimately learn more about sales very quickly and very quickly prepare myself to interview with numerous different companies. As an example, I explored both med device and tech sales simultaneously when I was looking back into the workforce, and part of the reason is a lot of med device companies in particular really love hiring former athletes. So I was looking into some of the big med device company names, and in parallel with actually applying, I got some quick responses from some companies, and other companies, most of them I at least got a first round interview. But the thing that I want to reiterate is that was not enough. In parallel to doing this, because I was still undecided about med device sales, tech sales, I wasn't sure which way to go, and I still wanted to put myself in a position to interview very well regardless of which route I was going. I networked through my family, who happened to know a doctor who was a former engineer that was now one of the top orthopedic surgeons in Western North Carolina. So I actually had lunch with them. I sat and talked for over an hour about what med device was, etc. I went in with no expectations, just very eager to learn about his career, about med device sales, etc. And by the end of it, not only had he given me a ton of great information, but offered to be a reference for me at any point in an interview while I was with these other big companies. While all of these steps aren't particularly necessary all the time, I will tell you, especially if you have no experience, doing whatever you can to learn as much as you can as quickly as possible is the mentality it's going to take to succeed in your interviews and ultimately your sales career. On the tech sales side, I applied at a bunch of different places, and I'm actually going to show you a message that I wrote to a manager, which was ultimately the first place that I worked. Now granted, I did have a connection at this company that always told me I should have switched into sales. They were also a former engineer themselves, so it definitely helped open the door. But that being said, I used similar type of messaging here for multiple different managers and got tons of interviews because of it. So you'll see in this message what I did. Obviously, I referenced the person that I knew that works within the company. That helps. But the manager that I was going to be working for, if I was hired, was also a former engineer, now in tech sales. So there was a huge selling point right out of the gate with my background that I was also a former engineer looking to transition into tech sales. Without having to spell it out for them, they could see, having made the transition successfully themselves, that if I was a former engineer looking to break in, they could probably coach me and help me get up to speed much faster than other candidates who may be coming from other non-sales backgrounds into tech sales. So you'll notice in this messaging, I do a few different things. One, in the case that you have a referral or someone in the company that's encouraging you to apply, I would always start with that. And notice that I call that out right away. But again, I quickly get to the things that are relatable to that manager in my case because I was a former engineer. And I also call something out that's unique to me, which is being a former national team athlete. So again, the point being, regardless of the specific accolades, regardless of your specific background, if you have an in with the company, a great route is to obviously mention that up front. Hey, this person encouraged me to apply. Then if you can relate to the manager very quickly again, whether it's a common background, maybe you went to the same school, something of that nature. If you have a particularly unique accomplishment or something of that nature that can show that you have the drive and the ability to learn and succeed at a high level. Or lastly, if you don't feel confident going any of those routes, what you can do, even if you don't have a referral, is message the manager in parallel and talk to them about how excited you are about maybe the SDR bootcamp or training that they have in-house. Is there something particular about that job that has really caught your interest? Because I can't tell you how many times I see people applying to SDR jobs that just want to break into tech sales just because it sounds good. Like when it really boils down to it, they're just like, yeah, I really want to make more money. It's like, okay, so does everyone else, right? Give me a sense of not only why you want to break into tech sales, but ideally you can really succinctly communicate why you're interested in that job specifically. And the message that I showed you, notice I didn't necessarily hone in on the job specifically too much because I'd already had a reference in the company. I already knew a lot about it. So I didn't have to focus on that and convince him that I wanted to work there. It was more about, yes, mentioning the referral that I had, but also talking about how our backgrounds aligned well and how I've shown previously in different domains the ability to succeed at a very high level. And again, if you don't have any of that, talk about how you've learned a ton about tech sales. You're very excited about their SDR bootcamp and you wanted to reach out to this manager specifically because of your interest and because of your desire to break into tech sales. Something of that nature. I've got more examples in other videos as well, but I hope that gives you an idea of how I broke into tech sales with zero experience. It is not enough to just apply and hope that you get a response. In addition to applying, are you messaging the hiring managers directly? Are you asking for time of people that maybe aren't in a direct position to hire you, but if you have people in your network, you have friends, former classmates, whatever it might be in sales, can you grab lunch with them or do whatever it takes to get 30 to 60 minutes of their time to even get an idea of what tech sales is even about? Even if you don't ultimately get the job, you're going to be so well positioned for future interviews or to even frankly know that ultimately tech sales might not be for you. That's fine. That's what happened with me in med device sales. But again, it's the people who are going out of their way to learn everything they can as quickly as possible, even if they didn't know anything about it a month or two ago, but really ramping up as quickly as possible, getting as much information as possible, speaking with credible resources with no expectation of a favor in return. I can't tell you how many times I'm willing to talk to people who are genuinely interested in tech sales versus the people who are trying to have a conversation with me because they want to hack their way and cheat their way to like a magical 6-figure job. And they don't actually have an idea of what tech sales is actually about. And they're excited about the idea of making more money, but don't actually know what goes into it. So anyways, I hope that helps. There is a lot of value to be had in content like this. Maybe if you feel the need to go the bootcamp route, there's always value in that as well. But at the end of the day, you can only study so much and you have to put yourself out there, fail in interviews, message people who will not respond to you, etc., until you start to learn enough and iterate on your approach enough to where you become the best candidate of the bunch. So I hope that helps. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.